Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to a very unique session of Pandesal Forum. We have special guests today. Of course, we have the Singapore Ambassador to the Philippines, Madam Constance. Yes. And of course, we have with us the author, Singapore-based Filipino educator and award-winning poet, who will be properly introduced later on more extensively, Dr. Eric Valles. Yes. Biglang nag-lightning Hindi yan choreograph And then later on, he will be moderator of the literary part of this session. Let us welcome Dr. Joachim Antonio. Yes. As a professor, he is more known as Joachim Emilio Antonio, but Joachim Antonio is his literary poet name. Yes. And of course, we have later on Mr. Vince Agcaoili, on the way. Yes, on the way. Then we have with us Dr. Mick Kamba. Yes, properly introduced later on by Professor. Yes. And then also Mr. Odie Lacsamana. Welcome. All of them will be properly introduced by Professor Antonio. And last but not the least, Miss Juliana Odoño. Yes. Today, the occasion is the book signing of the Singapore Literature Prize shortlisted book. Ang title is After the Fall. This one over here, authored by Dr. Eric Valles. Available for sale outside. You can buy the limited copies kasi nabili, the other books were sold already now, but you can order from Eric. He will send if naubos ang book. And also later on, today is also coincidentally the visit of Dr. Valles and Ambassador C. Today is also part of the National Book Week of the Philippines, Ambassador. Every year we have a National Book Week in the Philippines, which is the last week of November, and we are celebrating this. And also, tomorrow, Ambassador and Dr. Eric and the others here, tomorrow, November 30, is also the 162nd birth anniversary of one of the greatest Philippine heroes, Andres Bonifacio, who not many people remember was also a good poet and book lover. Many people only remember him for starting the Philippine Revolution against Spain, wielding a bolo, tearing up the cedula and starting the revolution. But not many people remember he was a very good poet, part-time theater actor, and a book lover. And I think, Ambassador, many great revolutionaries in the world were poets, kasi dreamers of a better world. So we'd like to welcome all of you to this very unique session celebrating poetry. I'd like to introduce now our special guest of honor who graced this occasion, Her Excellency Ambassador Constance C. I think possibly one of the youngest diplomats in the Philippines. And of course, very successful and respected. She is, of course, ambassador of, I think, perhaps the least corrupt country in the world. I hope she will teach this. I hope she will teach us some lessons how we can be even 1/4 as good as Singapore there. Before coming here in June 2023, she was former Director General of Southeast Asia Directorate of the Singapore Ministry of Foreign Affairs. She had served as top diplomat in Washington, D.C. and Taipei, and she studied BA History and Political Science from one of the world's best schools, National University of Singapore. And also she studied master's degree from King's College, University of London. Would like to invite Ambassador Constancy to give a message and to share a favorite poem.
Hello? Okay. Okay, I think I'll start with my speech first. Good afternoon, everyone. It is a real pleasure to be here with you at the most charming and venerable Kamuning Bakery. This is a place where I think history, conversation, and good bread coexist. I love words and I love bread, maybe too much for my own good. So I'm really happy to be spending the afternoon with you. Thank you, Wilson, for inviting me. I have been here as Singapore's ambassador for nearly 2.5 years. So what took you so long to invite me? But just kidding. I spend many hours every week in diplomatic meetings, business briefings, and solving problems big and small. So for me, it is a personal joy to be here amongst a literary community. Because when our countries talk about the strong people-to-people ties, this is exactly what we are referring to. The quiet, the steady work of artists and writers who create understanding and build bridges long before our governments formalize it in agreements and MOUs. And I think, Eric, you are one of these bridge builders. Though I have not had the pleasure of knowing you until today, I have read about your career and I have been very impressed by it. You are a Filipino writer and poet whose life has moved across different cities, Manila, Taipei, and Singapore. And coincidentally, I have also lived in all three places. I spent 3 years in Taiwan. And I think, from what I have gathered, your poetry traces themes that matter and resonate deeply in our region. Themes of movement, of memory, of identity, and the idea of belonging in more than one place. I think these are experiences that many Filipinos and many Singaporeans know intimately. Southeast Asia, after all, is a region shaped by mobility. People leave, they return, they rebuild, and reimagine futures. So I think your work speaks to those journeys. And in doing so, you have added to the tapestry of cultural connections that strengthen Singapore and Philippines relations. And I also want to acknowledge Eric's contributions to Singapore's literary community, not only as an award-winning poet, but as an educator, an editor, and convener who has helped to introduce Filipino voices to the Singaporean readers and vice versa. Anthologies that Eric helped to shape, like Get Lucky, show what happens when our cultural communities meet. The distance becomes smaller and our understanding richer. So this, to me, is the strength of cultural diplomacy, when writers, artists, musicians, and academics help us see each other with nuance, with empathy, and curiosity. Qualities that I think our region needs and which poetry cultivates so well. So I am delighted to be here to get to know and to celebrate a Filipino poet who has also made Singapore part of his journey, and to join a room full of people who reflect the shared cultural energy between our communities. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador C. Yes. Yes. Thank you, Ambassador.
So the poem I'm going to read, the title is called Location. The poet is Arthur Yap. Arthur Yap is one of Singapore's most important poets. He published mainly in the 1970s and 1980s. Unfortunately, he died too young. He died in his 60s, nearly 20 years ago in 2006. But his work is important because it helped to shape the early contours of the Singapore poetry landscape and continues to influence, I think, some young writers today. And his work is often about Singapore, offering us a different perspectives to look at ourselves. He examines the themes of permanence and identity. And so this poem that I'm going to read is quite a good example of that sensibility. His poetry always looks quite simple and calm on the surface, but there's a lot going on. And so this one particularly is the tension between permanence and impermanence, about things that may seem unchanging, but there are many shifts that are going below. And also he is resistant to nostalgia. He's urging us not to cling on too much to old identities. So I shall read this. Location by Arthur Yap. So this village is still here without change. And if I stay here any longer, I am already where I shall always be, here without change. In this village still here, some things remain, some things pass. Some things are tired. Bicycles arriving, cleaned bicycles departing. And if today not many people are arriving, do not change the day to bring in yesterday, riding an old identity, which anywhere has come and gone every year ago. And if you see a bicycle leaning on the grass, neither tired or cleaned, then it is just resting sufficiently to make no sense at all.
Thank you very much for that wonderful poem shared by Ambassador Constancy. Thank you very much. Ma'am, you have a book for me? She might forget.
So
Get the book, yes.
today on this occasion, I have brought a book for Wilson to thank you for inviting me after 2.5
Thank you,
years.
sorry. Yes.
This book is really freshly off the press. You know, it was
Wow.
launched in Singapore on November 19th.
Wow, like freshly baked bread.
Yeah, so I've just received. I just received this in the diplomatic bag yesterday, and I decided to bring it for you. I think you may be the first person I'm giving it to in the Philippines.
Oh, thank you very much.
So the title.
I will exchange.
So the title of this book is called Not So Little Red Dot. Now, a little bit of context.
I know that that's the Indonesian president before.
Yeah, so the little red dot was a bit of a pejorative term used to describe Singapore by a former Indonesian president. But never mind that. It's okay. That's in the past, but Singaporeans have proudly claimed the label of little red dot. We wear it proudly as a badge of honor to say that in a small country, a small state, we can still achieve big things if we do it right, and if we're committed and united as a people, and we have achieved things that are beyond our imagination. When we first became independent 60 years ago in 1965. So this book is called Not So Little Red Dot, 60 Years of Singapore's Diplomacy. It gives you a glimpse into how we practice our diplomacy in the last 6 decades. Often in a world that is not kind to small states. So every chapter here uses an episode in recent history in the 21st century to illustrate our approach to foreign policy and diplomacy. It includes episodes like the ongoing Russian-Ukraine war, the crisis in the Gaza, the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as our relationship with Malaysia. So I hope you will enjoy this. The story about this is that even as a small state, you have agency, you can change, nothing is inevitable or predestined, and it depends on the people who are committed to this country, who can come together to achieve your united vision of a country. Thank you.
I will now turn over the literary section, part of this session to Dr. Joachim Antonio, who will properly introduce all the poets. Thank you.
So good afternoon, everyone. I think we all agreed that we're gonna start strong and also end strong. So to start strong, we're going to, of course, start with the star of the show. Eric Valles draws inspiration from all the places that he has called home. Okay? He has published the poetry collections A World in Transit and After the Fall, Dirges Amongst Ruins in English and Spanish translation, as well as co-edited Get Lucky, an anthology of Singapore and Philippine writings, The Nature of Poetry, A Given Grace, and other anthologies. His poetry has been featured in Southeast Asian Review of English, Routledge's New Writing, and other journals. He has won the Gosin to Creative Writing Prize, as well as the Illumination, ELIT, and Catholic Media Book Awards. He has been invited to read poetry or commentaries at Baylor, Melbourne, and Oxford universities, as well as the Christchurch Poetry Festival and Jakarta Content Week. He is a director of the Poetry Festival Singapore. So, without any further ado, we'll be listening to two of Eric's poems.
Thank you very much, Joanne. Your Excellency, Madame Constancy, esteemed writers, family, and friends, thanks for being here. It's a great homecoming for me because I've read poetry in different places, but it's my first time to read in public here in Manila, right? And I'm so honored to have all of you here with me. My cousin, Auntie Bobby, was there. She was asking about my parents. They're getting old, getting older and weaker, so they can't make it tonight. But she's representing the family here. And then I've got friends from school. Right? Chris Santo has been a classmate, a schoolmate since prep, right? He now keeps Manila traffic moving in MMDA, right? Also, our Filipino teachers here, Mr. De La Paz, who also taught English in New York, right? He's here. And Her Excellency talked about close Filipino-Singaporean ties, and it was because of these bonds that I got to know some illustrious Filipino writers through the Singapore Writers Festival. And that's how I met Charles Ong many years ago, and some other people who can't make it tonight, right? And several other people like D.M. Reyes also contributed to some of the anthologies that I co-edited. That could have been for A Given Grace, which I co-edited with the Singapore Literature Prize winning Desmond Con. So it's a great honor to be here. And after the fall, Dirges Among Ruins, or Después de la Caída, is actually like a second life to me, because the original English collection has been translated to Spanish. And I was just talking about that with some of you earlier. There was somebody who wrote to me via Facebook Messenger, Maria Sucerquia del Castillo from Colombia. And I thought that it was a scam message. She wanted to translate my book to Spanish. And then, out of a whim, I applied for a translation grant from the National Arts Council. And Wilson knows very well that it has very deep pockets. And it actually funds all of these translation projects, even works into Tagalog or some other language. So it's ready to the bankroll, the printing, the editing. If you just send your applications, you just need to have some Singaporean content or people who are permanent residents or citizens in Singapore. The same goes for film, actually. There have been grants given to filmmakers, and I understand that there are people here who are in the film industry here. So Singapore is a very close friend of the Philippines, and it must be the 60th year anniversary as well of our diplomatic ties. Unlike only 56, sorry about that, close to 60, but SG60 is a watershed year for Singapore, and it's a big celebration, and somehow this reading is part of it, because we have Her Excellency here, and we have people in the audience who have close Singapore ties as well. Got a couple there, Belle and Albert, who have studied or worked in Singapore. And yeah, so I got the grant, and then this book was published in Peru, and Wilson said that we have limited copies because I get copies in small lots, like 15 or 20 copies at a time from Lima, Peru. Yeah, so if you can't buy your copies today, you can just write to me, and I'll send you from the next shipment. Yeah, so the poems are originally about the fall of the Twin Towers in 9/11. I was starting my my PhD in creative writing. I eventually obtained it from NTU, where the professor at the back is from as well. And I remember just a month after 9/11, I was actually in New York, but I avoided the subway because of the terror threats. So I walked from, is it 54th Street? Close to the Empire State, until the New York Met. And it took me 2 hours to walk one way. So that was a very precarious time. And in some ways, we are still in precarious times these days. And Singapore shows the way on how we can navigate these dangerous waters. They are a friend to all and an enemy to none. And perhaps our country can learn from that, right? For my dissertation, I also did some research on the fall of Singapore. So there are some poems that are in this collection which are about World War II. And just like the Singaporeans, Filipinos suffered a lot through that difficult time. They had thousands of people massacred in the Sukching because the Japanese wanted to move to Jakarta from there, and they wanted to eliminate as many people who could pose a danger to the puppet government. And they were kind of random in the way they selected people for execution. People wearing wearing eyeglasses, because that could suggest that they're intellectual. People here could, and people with tattoos as well. That could suggest that they're members of triads or gangs. And thousands of them died. And there have been poets who have remembered these people, including the very first poet who was published in London from Singapore. His name, something Pauleng, right? Francis Pauleng. He published in the 1930s, but he was killed during the Sukching, and then his brother wrote about him as well. And then on a spiritual plane, after the fall could also suggest our own journey through the difficulties of life. Could be about original sin, tragedies of life, corruption, hopelessness, but through it all, there's still some suggestion of hope, I think, in the collection. and we can show a lot of resilience, a lot of perseverance, which the Filipino is known for. And I said earlier that we're living in precarious times, and I'm just reminded because at Mass we're praying for greater accountability, more justice for everybody, and maybe it's just a matter of dreaming, using poetry and the arts to imagine different ways of being, right? Different ways of making society more equitable and more compassionate. And yeah, that's what after the fall, now Después de la Caída is all about. And let me just read to you a couple of poems from there. The first one is timely. We've had a lot of typhoons, and there will be more. Perhaps, hope not, but it is possible. And this is a real experience about the experience of an aunt of mine in Cainta, right? During since I was in Lourdes School of Mandaluyong, up to now, almost every year, there are floods in that part of I don't know if it's still true. Cainta.
Still flooded. Still flooded.
Yes. So unfortunate. And so this is about that experience. It's stranded on the roof in Cainta. Ripples scratch the water's leathery skin and whistle as they display raw power by knocking about my auntie's bungalow. She hisses away to the typhoon on a yearly raid. Auntie's face is flushed, like plowed earth. She steels herself against the watery surge by holding a red golf umbrella on the roof. White cars, silver vans scatter like old toys discarded by a bratty child. The waters claim them in exchange for a water table smuggled by city dwellers. On the iron roof, Auntie lays out poker cards and reshuffles them with one hand while shielding a grandchild with an umbrella from onrushing violence and thunderous din. This is no joke. Grabe, grabe. Her words circle like an incantation in still marauding waters, a sun she imagines above a rainbow. That's the end of the poem. Okay, the second poem is also kind of relevant, and this was commissioned. I wrote this for a collection by someone, Joel Toledo, whom I'm gonna meet on Monday. He's having classes right now in UST. Yeah, so this is about the EJKs, right? And this is a true story again, inspired by a student of the University of Asia in the Pacific, where I used to teach. I taught there for 5 years, and Odie and I coincided.
He's my co-teacher.
At the beginning of UANP, it was called CRC CAS, College of Arts and Sciences. And so this was a sister of one of the first alumni, right? Sleeping Beauty Redux. Her frame looking slightly hungover on the sidewalk. A hand which had brushed the hair of a son before he left for school made a strange gesture. A coy smile as she struck an awkward pose. In the hot wind, after a bullet tore through her chest. Blood soaked her nape and branded blouse, where she slumped, her skin fair and unblemished, her shiny black hair spread against green-brown grass. The breeze whispered salvation, which the police couldn't hear, nor would they say who pulled the trigger or in whose shoulder her son could cry. I taught her sister. I drove past that sidewalk where a red fountain sprang from your chest, until what remained of you was a shell, a reminder that no money, no angel face could silence the hounds of hell. In a nightmare, I watched her right shoe fall off as her back caught a bullet that later dropped to the earth. I awoke to rain, washing away the earth's grime, the lub-dub of water on pavement in place of her heartbeat, raged to scream and sensed the rumbling in her blood. Her fingers pressed tight, as if to say goodbye. Her tongue turned stiff before uttering a word. Memories of family and starting over dried up with blood. Touching her mouth was a breeze, a whirlwind for those who sow orphans' tears.
Thank you so much, Eric. Okay, so our next next poet is Mick Camba. Yeah. Mick Camba is an active member of the Linangan sa Imahen, Retorika at Anyo, a poetry organization founded by national artist Rio Alma. Okay. Her recent collection, Sampung Kyoku, collection ng mga haiku, was published online by Luntian Journal.
Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. I am the chair of the Filipino department, so I'll be reading a poem in Filipino. So what I'll be sharing with you this afternoon is a special nook, no, in UANP, my special nook in UANP. So it's entitled sa Stella Orientis. It's a church in our school. So sa Stella Orientis. Inakyat kong muli ang Stella Orientis upang lunurin ng kamanyang ang dasal ng pangungulila. Sa katahimikay uusal ng ilang siklo ng ama namin ng Aba Ginoong Maria, kunin na po ninyo ang dalamhati ng pag-iisa. Sasaluhan ng koro ang bawat taghoy ng Alleluia. Pinagmasdan kong muli ang mukha ng Birhen, karga-karga ang tagapagligtas ng mundo. Mabuti ang balita ng Ebanghelyong nagpapatahan sa ringoy ng kaluluwang umaasa sa grasya ng yakap ng pagkalinga. Lumuhod ako, nag-antanda. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mick. Okay, our next poet. Our next poet is Odie Lacsamana. Okay. Odie Lacsamana is a poet and an essayist who won 4 times in the prestigious Talaang Ginto sa Tula and 9 times in the Gawad Commission sa Sanaysay, sponsored by the Komisyon sa Wikang Filipino ng Pilipinas. In 1989, he received the prestigious Metrobank Outstanding Teacher Award of the Philippines. So, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello. I'm 73 years old, so I have to wear my eyeglasses. Ako po yung former department chair ng Pilipino. Siya po yung matanda na po ako. Gusto ko magbigay pugay kay Dim Nadera kasi binabasa ko po yung mga tula niya. At saka kay Charleston Ong. For my dissertation, it's about gendered reading of short stories. And I included your book, sir, The Woman of Agcao, and other short stories. It's dalawang tula po babasahin ko na sa wikang Pilipino o Tagalog. Sinabi ko sa aking sarili, baka kailangan basahin kong muli ito dahil sa mga nangyayari sa ating paligid, lalo na dun sa itaas. Hindi ko alam kung medyo violent siya o hindi, pero pakinggan niyo pong mabuti. Dalawang tula po ito. Yung pong una, ang pamagat ay para sa kasamang nalugmok sa dilim. Hindi ka na makikita pa. Paglagos na muli ng mga silahis sa tulay Mendiola. Bahagi ka na lamang ng luksang gunita sa maabong kasaysayan ng placard at barikada. Hindi ka na hahagarin pa ng sanlaksang punlo sa lansangang maliyab. Anino mo na lamang ang mababanaag sa madugong pader ng establishmento. Ngayong nagbabantang magbalik ang puot, sa aking mga matang ang luha ay dugo, muli kang babalik sa aking kamao, upang ang hiningang nabigat sa galit ay maglagablab sa buong paligid. Kung iilandang ang maraming bungo, sa panahong itong ang lahat ay silakbo, mag-aalikabok at lalagnatin ang mga landasing sa gubat at bundok. It's the first poem. Second poem, bahala na po kayo kung gaano siya kayo. The title is Mga Lilang Liryo Ngayong Gabi ng Pagbabangon. I was told by Galian sa Arte at Tula, during the time in 1984, the leader is no less than the national artist Virgilio Almario. Ando po lahat ng mahusay sumulat ng tula. Pag nag-meeting po sila, naghihiyaan sila, no, kung sino ang sasali sa palangka na matatalo, no, ni Rio Alma. Ganun po yung training ko, no. Pakinggan nyo po. Ulitin ko ang pamagat, Mga Lilang Liryo Ngayong Gabi ng Pagbabangon. I read better with hard copies, ano. Ayoko ng teknolohiya kasi parang nasa matrix ako, para nakabilanggo ako. Mabuti sa akin ang hard copy. Bago magdilim, ipunin mong lahat ang granating mukhang naknak sa utang. Mapuputlang labi na pinagkaita ng kapayapaan. Bigkisin mong lahat sa pagsasalikop ng araw at dilim. Darangin sa galit, abuhing mata, mamad na tubig, magrasang kamay. Ang sanglaksang aping kandong ng dalita, haplusin ng dugo, ang pag-iisa. Anong mapapala sa pagkagulgol at paghalukip-kip? Ang kumpol ng hiningang na timbuang sa putik, lingkisin mo ng liyab ng asero't maso. Pababayaan mo bang panawan ng sangsang ang 1,000 lingkaw at mapulang gatilyo? Ito'y huling marcha, huling pagbagtas sa pagod na lunsod. Halikan mo ang burak ng bawat pasilyo, kalyehon estero, yakapin ang silangan. Bitbitin ang punebre ng pakikibaka. Hayaang sugbain ng siklab ng apoy ang banat na palad ng yayat na dibdib at butuhang leeg ng kauri mong kinakayamos ng sakit. Ito'y huling marcha, huling pagbagtas ng katubusan sa pagod na lunsod. Mga lilang liryo para sa patay, mga lilang liryo para sa buhay, ngayong gabi ng pagbabangon.
Well, the next two poems will be from me. Okay. I'm actually more of a playwright than a poet, but I did start exploring writing poetry actively during the pandemic, and it's led me to some interesting journeys. And the poems I will be reading is, well, one of my inspirations over there, my youngest, who was willing enough to go all the way here, because she wanted to see the bakery. And, yeah, I'm Joachim Antonio. I've been writing plays. I've been writing plays for young adults since, as far as I can remember. So that's, so during the pandemic, of course, I could not write plays. So I started exploring a lot of other things like including writing poetry, writing microfiction, and making board games. so yeah, and of course, mainly, of course, a lot of my inspiration is really my family and my kids. So this first one was written. Okay, it has a little bit of context. This was written 2020, when my youngest was born. So now she's 5. So you have to imagine this poem when she was still newly born. A luchador. In a toothless, jaw-dropping awe, she watches her brother in mask, cape, and all nimbly climb up the chair, a table, and the window railings, and like a luchador, leap and dare the devil dive all the way to the floor. We scream, of course, but to her brother, it's just a crowd gone wild. Though still needing to know her numbers and still needing to learn her letters, though still ignorant of the joys of rolling, creeping, and crawling, she takes a careful mental note of what a fun stunt it would make when she's finally 4 years old. End of poem. Yeah. And then this other one, I might be mistaken by a day or two, but today's my uncle's birthday. Yes. And I got to meet him last month. Yeah, I got to meet him last month, and of course that made me go through a lot of memories, and of course it also led me to think of my own father, who when he was dying of cancer said, well, at least I got to live much older than my own dad. that's what he said.
Wilson, Joachim is the grandson of the last king of Balagtasan. Emilio Antonio.
Wow.
The father of Teo Antonio.
Yeah.
Your uncle has been here.
Yes.
Yes. Balagtasan.
Yeah. So here's a poem. Although I have to clarify, this is quite fictional. Okay, but still inspired by the recent events. Birthday Eve. Tonight, your granddaughter asked me for a story about you. She's a third the age I was then when I watched you lowered 6 feet under. Tomorrow, I'll be older than you ever were. I let her blow the candle for me as you once showed me division with your cake. I wish your subtracted days could add to mine and multiply my years with her. As I teach her, as you taught me, to find all the excess and wise to balance our way. End of poem. Our next poet, the youngest in our lineup, is Juliana Odoño. Juliana Odoño is an aspiring writer who has taken on numerous writing opportunities, both in the academe and in more independent literary circles. Now, one of her dabbles, 100-word stories, entitled "You're Gonna Get a Smaller Bill," was published only this year in 101words.org. So, ladies and gentlemen, Juliana Odoño.
Thanks, Dr. It's a really great honor to be here. I really feel like I'm the youngest in this panel, right? But thank you for listening to me. I'm also a teacher in UANP. I started 2 years ago, almost. And actually, the poems that I'll be talking about are actually a product of the creative writing class of the person who I am very inspired with, Dr. M. Right? So I also write a lot about my family. So the 2 poems that I will be talking about and reciting today are one of them is about my aunt. I'll go there first. My aunt kasi is named Elena, right? And we have this Filipino tradition of Reina Elena, right? May queens, no? So she is a bit of a queen, no, in our generation right now. And one of the things I really noticed about her is that every night or every morning she always would have dogs and cats, right? It's kind of like Noah's Ark in our house sometimes. No? So this is my poem to her somehow. And the title of the poem is To My Reina Elena of a Different Sort. My Reina Elena's of a different sort, from May's gauzy beauties, the very empress of old. Woe to every man and beast when her reigns cut short. Four-legged counts and canils make up her high court, who yipping and yowling wait behind gates of gold. Yes, my Reina's of a very different sort. A trolley of leftovers does she often sport, which she alone can gift her subjects. Yes, is told. Woe then, count and canil, when her reigns cut short. On man, his fustians and follies, she's no sweet tart, but more like tangy gingerbread, brusque, fierce, bold. Yes, my Reina's of a very different sort. But a kind smile, a wise word, follows bemused snort, like how gingerbread stangs spices, then cheers twofold. Woe then to each pan she's touched when her reins cut short. As I ready to sail beyond our humble port, her smile and sayonara's the last thing I behold. My Reina Elena's of a different sort. Woe to every man and beast when her reins cut short. And the floor. Okay, so the second one, as I said, no, this is one of my favorite poems, really. And my mother actually passed away a few years ago, so we're just three now in the family. I think my brother's outside. It's not exactly. But in any case, this poem is not about my mother, but about my father. And because I've spent a lot of time with him, sometimes he falls asleep when we pray the rosary, and sometimes, right? Sometimes I catch him in his sleep chewing, right? Like that chewing motion that he has, no? So I had observed that, and that became a topic of the next poem that I will read, which is entitled An Evening Rosary with That. Fast asleep, his mumble and munch set me a grin. His guffawn wakenings, music to my ears. To think him doddering, my heart is crushed within. Is it something crunchy, some chips or chicken skin? Comedic, muttered asides like Shakespeare's. Whatever it is, it's sure to set me a grin. But as I look on him, Philip Salvador's twin, I see white hair and gnarled hands, the dog ears of years. To think him doddering, my heart is crushed within. To lag on rosary beads is no mortal sin. Heaven smiles on a hard-earned sleep with amused cheers. Thus, perhaps, his mumble and munch set me a grin. But as I look on him, our home's humble linchpin, I curse, I chafe that I'm nothing but untried years. To think him doddering, my heart is crushed within. Look then, O soul, for those unseen weddings wherein joy and sorrow raise toasts in cups of mingled tears. Fast asleep, his mumble and munch set me a grin. To think him doddering, my heart is crushed within. And the poem.
Thank you, Juliana. Okay, our next poet is Vince Agcaoili. Vince Agcaoili, is born in Quezon City and raised in Antipolo, is a prize-winning poet and teacher whose poems have appeared in numerous Philippine journals. His honors include the Carlos Palanca Memorial Award for Poetry and 2 Maningning Miklat Awards, the 2023 prize and the 2025 Grand Prize. And he teaches literature at the University of Asia and the Pacific and De La Salle University, Manila. Okay.
Check. So first of all, to everybody who's here, busy ang Sabado ng lahat. So it's so nice to have so many people gathering in such small place. No? And I also want to congratulate you, Dr. Eric Valles, the first time we're meeting, and also, of course, to acknowledge the presence of Ambassador Constance C. It's so nice to be with peers, no, who love and really put time and effort for the crafting of the word, no, and people who support the arts community. No? So maraming salamat. Thank you po. Since we have guests from the Singapore, I thought it would be nice, no, to read a poem, not in, from a journal, no, in Singapore that published this work of mine. This is from the Singaporean journal PRNPA, Journal of Practice, Research, and Tangential Activities. No? I'll be reading two poems. Both of them are from a book project that is actually done already. So I'm hoping to publish it soon. And this first poem was prompted by an interesting conversation with a good friend of mine, Filipina poet and surgeon, Eliza Tagilaso, who got nominated in the National Book Awards just this week. No? So she asked me if, since the image of the heart has always been used in poetry, what if we be precise in mapping the heart? What would it look like? What would be inside it? So this poem is a response to that question. What's in the heart? A house with open doors, a child rushing, a window with no curtain looking at the world past his little shadow, a garden full of holes making room for ants, a fruit rotting somewhere, a clearing for everyone to seek or run from, a graveyard. Sometimes a butterfly fleeing a gravestone, warblers chanting their sorrow song on a burned out streetlight, the eye of the moon worried for a derelict on a sidewalk, the sadness of a white gaze. I forget who it was who told me to name the threat puts a better face on it. A knife then, a fire just put out, a mouth darkening after its last breath. Salamat po. I mentioned that the two poems I'll be reading are part of a bigger project, and really that project came about when a beloved person in my life passed away. And suddenly, everything that I look at, everywhere I visit, seems like a place where death is tangible. So I realized after a death, so many things die, and also so many dead things become more tangible, not just a person, perhaps a place, a word, an idea, a community, and so on. Perhaps the faith we have in something bigger. So as part of that project, ito yung pagtanaw sa labas ng sarili. Ano pang ibang kamatayan ang nakikita natin sa mundo? So I'll end with this poem. If you go to work every day, it's a reality that we see when we commute, no? Yung rush hour sa umaga, lahat pumapasok, lahat nagko-commute. I mentioned the word debts here, but that's not death kamatayan, but debts mga utang. I mean for this poem. You and who remembers? First light at the district, the avenues barely scorched, and already men and women swarm the streets in their tired suits. Dealers, clerks, aides, an entire colony of commerce trying to catch the minute and its quick steps. Even the sparrows, tired of their melancholy songs, are poised to flee their branches for seeds. The morning is a street yanked out of a dream and thrown into the city. Never mind the signs, never mind the trace of buses, the vague clamor of old trains. Money has a song, and I have unbound my wrists from timbers. They remain so. This instance, everything's where it's supposed to be. The shadow of wings on the pond comes and goes. The beggar asks and never receives. You can tally your debts on the water and hope it remembers. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you so much, Vince. Well, I asked Eric if he could read us at least one more poem. So, I mean, as I promised, we will end really strong. Yeah, so, there, yeah, let's bring it full circle.
Thank you very much, Joel. All right, so it's been heavy going. We've heard about disasters and deaths. Actually, the book is about gloom and doom, but where's the hope, right? Let me read the poem, which is kind of hopeful. And this was inspired by one of those online Zoom poetry readings that we had during the pandemic because we couldn't meet. And there was there's open mic, and it's kind of healthy here. Lacan is here to attest to that. And he's also part of the Poetry Festival Singapore from here. And he invites poets from all over the world. This is about that. This is One Body. I'm reading off the book. I hope I could see that clearly. I don't have glasses, although I should see it. Nice. I should see an ophthalmologist in a polyclinic when I go back. So this is One Body. A white American bewailed lockdown privation. I recalled the cross planted on conquered lands. A Singaporean saw verse as grace, abounding in books. A Native American saw Job's sorrows are into quilt bands. An Episcopalian lady disavowed atelophobia in prayer. A Canadian, awed by a missionary aunt, praised the maker of all things new. All joined with audio on Zoom controls. Video appeared in layers despite shaky Wi-Fi. We reached out like the blind with faith in view. Some reunited with friends whose work stood on their shelf, all bound as a community worshiping the Lamb in the ether. A foretaste of heaven where there is no writer's block, where you work and read sufficiently distanced together. Eyes on the here and now, where grace meets us unmasked. As we stay true to our calling to write about abiding love. Though years have passed since our lips touched his burning coal, a gift more precious than all the constellations shining above. Thank you very much, everybody, for being here. Thanks to Her Excellency, Congressman Wilson. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for all the wonderful poems shared by everyone. Of course, Singapore Ambassador Constancy. Next, we'd like to maybe a few questions from the floor. People could ask a few questions with the ambassador and the poets, and then afterwards we'll have photos, yes, and the book signing. And who would like to ask a few questions? Maybe one or two. Yes, yes.
Dr. Valles, what persona inspired you
who inspired you?
There are many inspirations. I am influenced by the things that I read or the things that I experience. So the last poem that I just read is about an online poetry reading. So I write about commonplace things like you do. And everybody here in this room is a writer, even if it's just of memos, right? Or legal briefs. Yes. So so that's my inspiration for my work. The things that happen to me or the things that I read, and the others probably have their own experiences. Maybe Joachim can share us his inspiration for his work.
Well, it's really for me. It's really just for family. Now, when I walk down, when I commute from home to work and walk from work to home, I mean, there's so much to see. Yeah, and just being observant, I think, about everyday life. We're not going to run out of subject matter. I think even Vince attests to that with this last poem. Yeah.
Or poets who inspired you? Anyone? Poets who inspired you? You admire? Baka.
Marami po. Iba-iba po. Depende po yan sa paksa. Pero pag after the workshop with the celebrated poets, kasi lahat po sila doon mukhang protest literature, So, nakigaya lang po ako nung una sa protest tradition. Then I was telling myself, mukhang I have to resurrect certain poems and voices because of what is happening right now. Writing is a symbolic act. If you cannot do it in the real world, you can do it in your work. Writing is a symbolic act. Marami pa ako nasulat na essay, Isang katutak po yan. Depende po sa topic ng nagpapa-contest. O kaya, mahalaga po kasi yun, kasi pagka commission, gusto ko yung word na yan, sabihin may bayad, matagal na pa kasi ako nagsusulat, nagseservisyo. I taught well, and if somebody asks me as a teacher, what is your contribution to nation building? The answer is simple, I taught well, and that's my contribution to nation building.
Thank you very much to teachers like you.
Yeah,
Thank
I'm
you.
73 years old.
You don't look 73 except for the white hair. By the way, I forgot to mention Professor Joby Miroy, also here from Ateneo de Manila University. The question is from him. He has a question for Ambassador Constancy. Professor Joby Miroy, philosophy professor, he asked, what could Singapore as a country teach the Philippines in terms of anti-corruption reforms and systems that you have? Why is your country the least corrupt country? And maybe poetry, and you're very good at arts and literature. You spend a lot of government money supporting the arts. Eric Valles earlier mentioned to me, one of the best art critics in the Philippines, you've already stolen. Now in charge of your National Art Gallery. Same last name as me, Patrick Flores. So maybe you can share something about your anti-corruption success, the systems there, and your art and culture advocacy of your government. Why are you spending a lot of resources on art, culture, poetry?
Singapore, we don't see ourselves as a model for anyone. We do what is right for Singapore and Singaporeans, what will benefit our community. So I don't presume to be able to teach anyone, but our starting point has always been that the government must serve the interests of the people. And that's what elections are for, right? That you have free and fair elections. You choose the right people who will serve your interests. If they don't, you don't elect them the next time. And from the beginning, our government had made it very clear that there's no place for corruption. It's zero tolerance. We put in place the systems, digital or otherwise, to ensure that you cannot steal. You will almost certainly be caught stealing. And also, part of it is we pay people so they have no incentive to steal. But also, there is that ethical code where, especially if you're in government, you're there to serve the people. It's called public service for a reason. And we're guided by that. So I would say that Singapore public servants generally are committed to our duty. We are paid reasonably well, and we all want to see the country succeed, that everyone's lives are uplifted, and that we enjoy good public services. Despite the best efforts, of course, there are always some isolated cases, but they will be found out and they would receive the punishment that they deserve. And so that's how we continue to keep the trust. So I believe that in Singapore, our society works because of a strong relationship between government and people, the high level of trust. It's very important. Trust is the true currency of any government. Takes a long time to build, can collapse easily, so it must be handled with care. So governance, I think good governance is really at the root of it all, and it's inculcated in all of us. It's part of our DNA, but I would not say we're always successful. As I mentioned, there are always isolated cases. So that's all I'll say on that topic. I also believe that the people entrust their futures, their children's futures, to the government, and that is a very heavy responsibility that as public servants we must abide by. Why we spend so much on arts and culture? I think because it's integral to the human condition, right? Being able to reflect and examine your life and expressing it, whether it's through painting, poetry, music, or other forms of art. For in the past, many decades ago, Singapore was seen as a cultural desert. We experienced rapid and high growth, high economic growth, 70s, 80s, you know, people became rich, they were focused on making money, and there was an impression that there wasn't much you can talk about in terms of arts and culture in Singapore. So I think there was also a concerted effort to change that. Therefore, the huge investment in making our museums world-class, in collaborating with partners across the region and globally, supporting our artists. We have a very vibrant poetry scene, you know, despite our small size. You mentioned Patrick Flores. I know Patrick, and I collaborated with Patrick last year to mount an exhibition at the Metropolitan Museum of Manila, the M. So this is the part where I talk about our relationship. Last year was the 55 years of our diplomatic relations, and to mark that, I mounted an exhibition bringing 8 Filipino artists and 8 Singapore artists. They have all done artist residencies in Singapore, and I brought the works that they completed in Singapore together at the M to be exhibited for 2 months last year. And Patrick Flores was the curator. So I am always amazed by the cultural connections and collaborations we have. There are 200,000 Filipinos working, living, studying in Singapore. It's a large Filipino community, a very vibrant one, and we thank them for always contributing to the fabric of our society. You have made our lives richer. And thank you very much also. I always take the opportunity to thank all the Filipino frontliners, the healthcare workers who stood side by side with Singapore during the COVID pandemic. They could have left, but they didn't. They stayed put and helped us fight the pandemic, standing side by side with us. So for that, I will always be grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexis. Thank you very much. So next, we'd like to request.
I have a question.
Yes, I have a question. Yes.
I can start.
Yes.
Okay. This is for Eric. So I was talking to you earlier that I actually
Please
read.
mention your name.
I'm Joel Adriano from Science and Development. That's why it's SciDev. And also I've just formed a publication just recently with two other guys here, the Asian Compass. So it's fairly new. Now, I mentioned to you that I actually read your book about a decade ago in the UK, where I was based before. And of course, each one of us has our own idea and reaction after reading it. Now, but I want to get into your mind now. As in, I want to understand what actually motivated you to write this and come up with this book. And secondly, you mentioned earlier that everybody's a writer. So what can ideas or suggestions or tips that you can give, especially for those who are kind of in the late ages now? Can they still be right? So anything about that? Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, you mentioned reading the original book 10 years ago. It was actually 10 years ago when it came out, and it's out of print in Singapore, unfortunately. Yes, and that was shortlisted for the Singapore Literature Prize for poetry. And the reason for its coming into being was quite simple. I was in a PhD program for creative writing. So I was just thinking of possible topics to write about. And I was saying that 9/11 was current at that time. It started out about that. And there are poems about terrorism and counterterrorism measures. But eventually, I also did some research on World War II in Singapore, particularly the plight of Eurasians during that time. I don't know if Her Excellency knows that there was a big Eurasian community that actually moved to Malaya, then Bahau specifically, because they wanted to start a farming community. And it was backed by the Catholic Archdiocese. And even the bishop went with them to Bahau. But the thing is, Eurasians are not known for being farmers in Singapore or elsewhere. So, in fact, there were people who brought pianos with them to Bahau. Also the soil was kind of inhospitable, so didn't really get to produce much while they were there, and they became victims of dysentery and other diseases. So at least a third of them died in Bahau. It was just put up for a few years, like during the Japanese occupation, and after the war it was abandoned. And I'm still writing about that. I have the kernel of a novel in verse, but since I'm a teacher, I really don't have much time to write because I have to mark papers and prepare lessons all the time. And they can probably empathize with that. But that's that's the gist of it. And then there's some things about my own life, living in Taipei or in Singapore. Yeah, so it's about a lot of things that I've read and experienced. And how to become a writer. Easy, just imitate. Some people, Odie was talking about imitating people. Like, how did Picasso become who he was? He went through the pink and the blue periods, imitating the masters. So it is with writing. Odie was influenced by a lot of protest poets. Maybe Lacaba was one of them.
Yeah.
Our customer
Amazing.
here. Our customer here.
Great. Amazing poet.
It's like a,
And I think he was one of the brothers who's invited for today, right?
yes.
Yes. I've always wanted to meet him from the Filipino classes in
He was
university.
with a former Singapore ambassador before, years ago, here, during World
Okay.
Poetry Day. Akaba.
Yes. So imitate people, great people. In my case, I'm a big fan of Pablo Neruda, the Chilean poet, wrote wonderful love songs and poems eventually. And then Elizabeth Bishop, of course, she was a fine poet in terms of craft, poet's poet. And Jose Rizal was an inspiration in Spanish class. A la Juventud Filipina. I remember that, and the lemma was "Crece o tímido flor," right? It was quite inspiring from a young age, and nobody's too old to start writing. Right? So you can start a blog, or you can start an e-zine, and some of you are doing that. Belle has her own blog or e-zine there. You just okay. I was talking with Her Excellency about Edwin Thambu, who is the father of Singapore literature. He's also our advisor at the Poetry Festival. And then he just turned 90, must be 92 last weekend. And then we asked him what his advice is for young people. And he just said 3 words: write, write, write. Just that. That's how you become a writer. Just like painters become Picasso through painting.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for all the answers and the wisdom.